let's just call a spade here. Scarface is one of the greatest movies ever made. I've lost count of exactly how much times I have seen this film, and I never get tired of watching it. I know I'm never gonna get tired of watching it. You know, it chronicles the rise and fall of a gangster perfectly, and, you know, without question, it's one of the best remakes of all time. But, you know, I could gush about this film all day. What I really want to talk about is one of my main takeaways from the film, and that's to never get too complacent to the point where you start to become careless. Where your ego gets so big to the point that you think you can do no wrong. See, Tony Montana, while he was on the come up, he played all his cards right. You know, he had a goal, he had a vision, he knew where he wanted to be, he knew where he saw himself, and all his decisions, everything he did was calculated based on whether or not it would take him closer to that goal or not. And that's exactly how it should be. You know, in life, before you make any choices, you should always think about the long-term ramifications. Not acting off of impulse and thinking about the short-term pleasures, but being careful and strategic. That's what got Tony to the top of his own enterprise, you know, until he started being careless, of course. I think when we talk about the downfall of Tony Montana, the thing that we really point to is when Tony killed Manny. You know, that was pretty much the point of no return. At that point, everything, that wasn't the catalyst, don't get me wrong, everything was already in motion, but after that, there's no going back. You done signed your own death wish at that point. But that's because Tony had accomplished everything that he already wanted out of life. He already had everything he wanted, so he got complacent. He was happy with his life. And I mean, you should be happy with your life, don't get me wrong, life is only so short, but at the same time, don't get complacent, and don't think that you can do no wrong. Tony kind of forgot that we're human here. We can all make mistakes. Not just killing Manny, you know, pushing away all his day ones, doing so much drugs to the point he was paranoid 24/7, you know, starting a war. All of that led to his downfall, and the young Tony would have never done any of that, because he knew where it would have led him, and he knew it wouldn't have ended up good long term. Needless to say, Tony made all the right decisions while he was on the come up, and made all the wrong decisions after he made it to the top. And don't get me wrong, when I say he made all the right decisions, I don't mean in the eyes of morality, because, you know, Tony was a very unjust person. He had some slivers of humanity here and there, yeah, but he committed a lot of crimes. He killed a lot of people. He was not a good person. But the reason we admire Tony so much is because he came from nothing. He made it out. He wiggled his way through the hopelessness. Like I said, he didn't do it the right way. He committed a lot of crimes, but he still made it out. He still had a vision. He had a goal. He could have had short-term pleasures and this and that, but he didn't care about that. He was only focused on his goal, and he did everything in his power to take him closer to that goal. And that's why we admire Tony so much, the sheer will and determination. You know, that's something that we all wish we had. I think that when you're on the come up, it's easier to make decisions because you have a metric to go based off of. You can base this off of, you know, how it's going to affect me long term. But when you reach your goals, you no longer have that metric. You no longer do what you need to do, you do what you want to do. In life, we're always going to have goals, and when we reach those goals, it's fine to enjoy the fruits of our labor. Don't get me wrong, it's fine to splurge and spoil yourself a little bit, you know, as long as it doesn't put a major dent in your fortune. But to stop yourself from getting complacent and making the wrong decisions, you have to continue to think ahead. You know, either you want to expand the business, you want to continue to grow, or you want everything to stay exactly how it is, you know, because you're perfectly happy with life. In which case, you make your decisions based off of, is this going to mess up my life, or is this going to, you know, keep my life going how it's going? And that's going to be your new metric. Never think that you're too big to make a mistake. We're only human. Of course we're going to make mistakes. Our mistakes help guide us in the right direction. But those are just some of the thoughts I had after watching Scarface for the umpteenth time. I really think that if people don't get too complacent and don't make decisions based off of impulse, but instead of how they'll affect you long term, that'll lead to better decision making. You know, that's what got Tony to the point he was at. That's what brought him to the top. And if his ego didn't get too big and he didn't think he could do no wrong, he would have continued to stay at the top. But rise or fall, it's all just part of life. Nothing lasts forever, and one bad decision can spiral into a million bad decisions. That's how it starts. But that's about all I got to say on that topic. Peace.